Hi, I'm Sarah. This is Hardcover Hearts. I have been remiss in maintaining my schedule, so apologies for that. I decided that a really good way for me to jump back in right now would be with the mid-year book freakout tag that was done many, many years ago by someone named IsThatChami. That was the name of the channel. The original video is no longer on YouTube, but I think because this is such a perennial favorite, we should mention it anyway. And so this is something that I did not get a chance to do last year, and I was bummed about it, but this year it's actually really perfect. Because I've been traveling so much, because I've been working so much, I haven't been able to maintain my regular schedule. So there are some books that I'll be talking about today that I haven't reviewed as I would have in a week of reading. So it gives me the opportunity to do that, which makes me very happy. And just kind of as a nice summation of where I am mid-year. So I'm going to be looking at my computer right here and answering the prompts. So the very first prompt is, what is the best book that you have read this year so far? I took this out from the library when my hole came up. This is James by Percival Everett. And while I used to love a good retelling or, a fashioning of an old story made new again, I've been a little burnt by them in the last few years. Not loving it as much, but this is worth changing my stance on. So I was a little hesitant coming into this book, but I'd heard raves from people that I admire. So I was like, oh, let me give it a try. And it's really, really good. It's really good. And I think it's because it felt less satirical than it did an interesting story about a character pulled from the background into the foreground. So the retelling is of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Now, while Jim has been a companion for Huck on many of his misadventures, in this story, we see that James actually has to kind of play along. He's not there necessarily as a willing participant. There are things that he is trying to achieve through this very narrow space that that he has, because he is a slave. He is a slave in the South, and he has limits to what he is able to do. But he is very, very smart in how he maneuvers through, but he finds himself in a situation that tests all of his ability to code switch, to maximize his every single opportunity that he has. And through these meetings of all these different people that he comes across as he's trying to get free. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I do think that you don't need to have reread Huck Finn in order to get this one. I think it's perfectly fine to just do a Wikipedia skim of the synopsis and then go straight from there. I think it's extraordinary. I would be surprised if this isn't on a bunch of prize lists at the end of the year. And the next one, I know I'm supposed to only pick one, but it's me, so it's hard for me to stack rank them that way. So this one is another one that I found to be exceptional and still taking up space in my mind. The next question is the best sequel you've read so far this year. Now, this would have made one of the best if it weren't for a sequel. And I just finished this recently, and it was impeccable. Just impeccable. And this is the Eillish Lacey second of the I guess what appears to be a duology. Maybe there'll be more, I don't know. Long Island by Colm Tóibín. So Tóibín did Brooklyn, and these characters are a continuation. We've leapt forward about 15 to 18 years ahead, and we see Eillish and her husband in America, living very close to his family, and she has kind of been just enveloped in this Italian-American family and all of their rituals and traditions and how they live. And she has struggled to find her voice and her place. She knows she's respected. She has a good relationship with her mother-in-law. She has 2 children, a daughter ready to go to college and a son, a teenage son. Loves them deeply, has a great relationship with them both, and seemingly has a great relationship with her husband. She has a job, and she's living the American dream, but you can tell that she aches for some space and some time without people asking about her, looking after her, knowing every moment where she's going, who she's with, all of these things, because Frank's family lives all around her. And something happens in the very, very, very beginning. I am not going to say because it was such a shock to me, even though it's very early on, but it's something that shakes the bedrock of what she thinks about her life and throws her into a desire to go back, to take some time away and go back, use the opportunity that her mother's 80th something birthday allows by saying that she's going to go back and see her mother before her mother passes. And she has not been back since Brooklyn. And so so a lot of the themes of you can never go back home, kind of those kinds of things, and which life is the best life to live, rear up again in this volume in a different way, in a more mature way, with more history and more background. I thought that it was tremendous. I loved it. I ached for her, even though she's very difficult. She's a very stubborn, difficult woman. There's a lot of humanity in this and a lot of complicity that goes around. There's no perfect characters here. And I think that makes it really, really interesting. So yeah, that's been tremendous. All right, moving on to number 3, new releases you haven't read yet from this year, but you want to. Okay, so I haven't cracked any of the Booker International books yet. Again, I'm so behind in my reading. So here are some that I have been anxious to read. This is from the Booker International, as I said, The Details by Genberg and translated by Kira Josefson. I really like that cover. This is Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. And this is translated by Johnny Lorenz. Look at that. And then I've just bought this in New York when I was there. This is Kairos by Jenny Erpenbeck. And I really love this cover. I like this a little bit better than the other ones. So excited to try those. I also have yet to read this. This is Soldier Sailor, Claire Kilroy. And this is, I think, shortlisted for the Women's Prize. So excited to read this. I hear it's going to be very much of a crying fit. I do want to read this. This is Her Side of the Story by Alba de Cespedes, and it is translated by Jill Faustin. Really beautiful cover right there. Italian writer, written in Italian. And I loved The Forbidden Notebook. If you remember, if you've watched my channel for a while, The Forbidden Notebook was one of my favorites from last year. So really looking forward to this. And then this is another one that I'm excited for because I read short stories now, although really slowly, like shockingly slowly. This is Table for Two. This is Amor Towles' book. I really love A Gentleman in Moscow. And in fact, I binged the series with Ewan McGregor, which I just thought was extraordinary. I loved it. I thought it was beautifully rendered, beautifully done. So I'm really looking forward to checking this out. Then the next is the most anticipated release for the second half of 2024. So I'm looking forward to the neat Kate Atkinson. She has a new Jackson Brodie story. So it's her mystery series that she does. So I'm curious to see what's going on with Mr. Brodie. And then there's also the like with imminently is the very last of the Maisie Dobbs series by Jacqueline Winspear. And so I love this series. It's next to the Three Pines series with Inspector Gamache by Louise Penny. Oh yeah, there's a Louise Penny book coming out this year too. The Maisie Dobbs series is, I love it. I find Maisie Dobbs a wonderful character. I think her evolution has been tremendous, just a really beautiful growth for her character and it's much more about her than it is about the mysteries that she solves. So I'm excited for Jacqueline Winspear to put this to rest so that she can kind of pick up other things in her future. Okay, now the bummer portion. This is the biggest disappointment this year. I had huge hopes for this book. This is Undiscovered by Gabriela Weiner, translated by Julia Sanchez. This one should have ticked all of my boxes. It had everything that I love. It was autofiction. It was dealt with colonialism. It dealt with grief. It dealt with non-traditional relationships. It dealt with colonialism and who gets the right to claim certain things, art, history, a ton of things that should have lined up to make this a winner. I found the voice of the narrator to be insufferable. I wanted to be interested. I just wasn't. I could not get into it. I found her to be self-indulgent. I think it was too easy for her to talk her way out of certain situations and justify to herself certain positions. She talks about the sins of her father as she repeats them in her own life. I don't mind an unsympathetic narrator. I think that this book was just too close. There wasn't enough perspective or pushback to take in a more universal or a bigger theme. Yeah, this just was not for me. But let's talk about the biggest surprise of the year. So I did not read this author's previous work, Sudden Death, because it sounded just way too outlandish, where Cortez, the conquistador, and Caravaggio, the Italian artist, were having a tennis match. Just wacky, right? I don't care about tennis, so that just didn't inspire me or sound very appealing. But this one sounded fantastic, and on a lark, I just took it out of the library, and I'm so glad I did. This book was You Dreamed of Empires, and this is by Alvaro Enrique and translated by Natasha Wimmer. This was absolutely wild. Wild. So this book is set in what is now Mexico City, but was in the past the center of the Aztec Empire in Tenochtitlan. Hope I said that right. The huge palace. And we meet Montezuma as a bored, uninspiring kind of mess of a leader who is taking psychedelic mushrooms all day long. And he forced a marriage upon his sister for a means of control and ensuring that she's under his command and doesn't go off and do her own thing. He is, attending to the rituals. His priests have a lot of power, and he just flippantly will send people to horrible, excruciating sacrificial deaths on a whim. So he's like the worst of the worst, but with this malaise and just, doesn't really care about anything, which so it adds this interesting tension of being both funny, but also terrifying at the same time. Then we see Cortez and his retinue showing up, and all of these very, very amusing cultural clashes happen from the very get-go. Cortez is almost killed in the moment they meet because he goes to do something that is seen as inappropriate. And so they're staring at each other. The Aztecs are staring at the Spanish and they look at each other as if they're barbarians and savages and just, oh, they're so gross. And, you see this from these two perspectives. And, you know that this is not going to end well, but it's just this time that is spent in this area, in this palace that is almost like a maze, and all the machinations that are happening, all of the assumptions that are being made by each of the political leadership and the supporters and the influencers who are trying to see what they think is going to happen and how they want to see it play out. It was bloody, brutal. There's some gross parts, but it also feels like he really spent his time doing the type of detail. You felt like a tourist because everything was so vivid in this palace. I could not believe the richness of the writing when it came to place. I thought this was phenomenal. Favorite new author. So this isn't necessarily, new because she's old, but new to me, Natalia Genberg. So as part of the Author Spotlight series, I chose to look into her work because I'd heard so many good things about her. I really like Italian literature, want to read more, and was very surprised that her style is not like Elena Ferranti. Her style is uniquely her own. We read a ton of these. Looking forward, Daunt has another one that's going to be released in this series. She's captured my heart this year. Then newest fictional crush. I will say, so far this year, my heart remains mine. I have yet to be moved by any fictional character this year, so there's still time. I don't know what we'll find moving forward. We'll see. Next is the newest favorite character. So James from Percival Everett's book, James, was phenomenal characterization, just exceptional, exquisitely rendered, just fantastic. Loved that character. Next is number 10. This is a book that made you cry this year. So I thought I was going to get up to this point in the year and not have any tears, but this one proved me wrong. This is a series I'm reading with my dear friend Leo from Leo's Little Book Life. We're reading Émile Zola's Rougon-Macquart series. I think we're up to number 9 or 10. But this is the Assommoir, translated by Brian Nelson. And this cover gives you a very, very good understanding of what exactly is going to happen in this book. We really pulled the sheets back on the underbelly, the poverty, desperate poverty of Paris during these years at the turn of the century, before the turn of the century. And I think this was written in 1877. And we meet Gervais, and Gervais is a spunky, will not take no for an answer, hardworking woman who just is cursed with the wrong men in her life, cursed with attracting just losers and falling in love with them, and not knowing how to disentangle herself until it's too late. And this is a story about alcoholism as well. And you can tell that Zola knows of what he speaks because of the difficulty that alcohol brings, and the highs and the lows, and the attempts to walk away, the attempts to not do it, only then to succumb again. As well as there's a building that plays a key importance in this book, and I can see this building. I can literally see it in my mind's eye. It is so clear to me because he wrote it with such care. As always, I am a Zola fan, Zola stan all day long, and can't wait to read the next book in the series. Yeah, but the ending had I literally sobbing. So well done, Zola. Now, number 11, books that made you happy this year. I will say anytime the series has a new graphic novel released, I immediately drop everything and try to find it. This is Heartstoppers, Volume 5. This is by Alice Oseman. This is the 5th in the graphic novel series. And what I love about what she's doing is she's taking us on a journey of young love with these two characters and these characters are just, oh God, I just want to hug them. This is Nick and Charlie. And they're young boys at this school, and they fall in love with each other. One's a rugby player and the other has been a bullied, young, just kind of a little shy, a little meek, very thoughtful reader. And they fall in love and they have trials and tribulations as they're coming out, as they're figuring out each other and their own sexuality. It's been a joy, a lovely thing to watch. And what I especially love about this series is how they focus on mental health. She's been tremendous in how she is bringing up mental health issues that young people face and sensitively addressing them and sensitively bringing them to the foreground. So it's tremendous. I will say, as much as I don't love the art, it works. It's so simplistic and it's so, but it doesn't allow that to gloss over. The story actually comes out, I think, more rich because of how simple the drawings are. So yeah, I'm a huge fan. Number 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year. I have such a distinct memory of staring at this book in the Brick Lane bookshop. And I was there because I was there for work, and I was invited to a UK booktubers event, kind of a bookstore crawl that they were doing. I put a video or commentary about it in a video below, so I'll put a link to that there. And it was organized by Katie Lumsden, and Katie has a new book that's she's going to be doing this year, publishing this year, and I think it's already out for reviews, and so I think you can get it on NetGalley. But I loved her first book, and that was The Secrets of Heartwood Hall. Was exceptional. So really looking forward to seeing what she's put out for her second book. But I was standing, so she kind of got everyone together and invited me because she saw that I took a photo at Foyles. And she said, if you're going to be here for the weekend, would you like to join us? And of course, I was beyond excited to do so. So I'm standing there and we're looking at the shelf, and I'm talking with Eric Hall Anderson, and I'm also talking with Roz from Scalladandling about the books. And I asked them, I pointed to the cover and I said, have either of you read that? Because I don't have any more room in my luggage, but I will make a exception if it's a good book, but I don't want to spend the money if it's not. Well, they said they hadn't heard anything about it. So this is a chance, complete cover buy, because I think this cover is so great. This is Mongrel by Hanako Footman. And look at that cover. This is a story about 3 women and their interconnected narratives, set, I think, in Japan, or if not, Japan features in as a connective thread. But when I got back, I had to place an order because the women's prize long list came out right after I got back. So I just snuck this one in the order, and I just think this cover is outstanding. And then the very last question, what do you need to read by the end of the year? I have my author spotlight series that are going through the year. So right now we're reading Elizabeth Bowen, and next up is Simone de Beauvoir. It's a mix of her autofiction, memoir, and her fiction. And then we are going to move on to Elizabeth Colgate. So stay tuned for those announcements if you're interested in any of those. We do opt-ins before we get started on those, so you can join us if you so choose. And so I definitely want to read those. I want to read those that I've shown you. And then, I just have so many that I have bought lately from the UK, from the trip that I just took in February, that I really want the time to be able to read them. As I made mention, it's been a difficult time to find for sitting down and actually just reading. So that's it. I'm going to stop here. I would love to know, have you read any of these and what your thoughts were? And as always, thank you for joining, and I'll look forward to hopefully talking to you next week. Thanks. Bye.